So hello, this time we have 2 years of airhacks TV. The last time someone commented are actually not 2 years of airhacks. There were almost 2 years. So we can celebrate again. And this time we have something special Mac, Java, and particularly precious, Sun Microsystems. So as you can see, so I would say in 10 years of airhacks TV, we can celebrate a Mac with Oracle on it. But right now is the first logo of Java. I think I got it around, I would say, around 2000. And yeah, so we have two years of continuous answering and questioning Java and Java EE. So okay, let's start with the question. There are lots of questions this time, almost 30 questions. So let's start with Java EE news, and for this purpose, I would like to start with the Java EE news and Project Docklands. So I was a little bit busy and created some new images for Docklands. I started with what Docklands is a set of simple Docker images, and it started with Payara and Whitefly, and now I got a WebSphere Liberty profile and WebLogic server and Postgres and Derby databases, as well as headlands in various flavors. So I use it heavily. Sometimes as a base for my projects and sometimes for workshops and trainings. And on this note, related, I use the Docklands in 2 screencasts. Both are about a month old, and the overhead of Java EE application servers. In this screencast, I tried to show you the overhead using the JVisual VM. So like looking inside the JVM, what happens? And at this screencast, I launched WebSphere Liberty profile, WebLogic, Payara, Whitefly, Tommy, and Hello World and compared this to a Hello World application. And I looked from outside. So I just measured the complete size of Docker image with, I guess, surprising results. So this is a bit of a story. So this, and of course, also interesting. So I got about more than 5,000 subscribers, was actually big news, and almost 350,000 views. So Java EE news. There is an interesting new Twitter handle called Java EE Guardians, and very active. And so the breaking news is 70 minutes old. James Gosling is behind Java EE, and more details soon. So follow the Java EE Guardians Twitter handle. And behind this is very active Reza Rahman, a nice guy, former Java EE evangelist, and he really cares about Java EE. He tries to push it forward. And yeah, so if you would like to see, what the Java EE underground is doing, so subscribe to the Java, or follow the Java EE Guardians. And yeah, the interesting part is, they try to push Java EE forward regardless what happens. So this is Java EE Guardians. Also interesting, there's a really nice blog post from Sebastian Daschner, is the author and creator of JAX-RS Analyzer, a nice tool which generates documentation from JAX-RS, from JAX-RS annotations. And what he did is actually what I also do. He said, stop saying heavyweight. I usually don't do this. If someone mentions Java is heavyweight, I would like exactly know what is meant. Is it CPU overhead? Is it runtime size? Is deployment speed? What is it? So what is heavyweight? And I try to measure it and compare it, and nothing is heavyweight. So I always challenge the someone who mentions Java is too heavyweight or too bloated or whatever. I would like exactly know what is meant by this. And he did a nice write-up. So he described the build time, artifact size, deployment time, memory consumptions, and so interesting summary. I did the same in a screencast. So read that. I will just post it to our chat. And so you have something to read at the evening. So perfect. Then a little bit of drama, of Java 8 drama. Arjan Timms of Java 8 asked about Java 8 timeline, and Bill Shannon said our team is working on other assignments currently, and the schedule to incorporate these components hasn't not been worked out yet. Sorry. So what it means, the Oracle EG is doing something else. What? No one knows. And now they have no resources for Java 8, and no one knows what happens. I mean, it is good and bad. So good because the other folks get chance to do something, and we should see and wait what happens. In my eyes, if some specs become inactive, we could just take them over. I mean, this is part of the process. We could try to help Oracle if there is no resources for Java 8, and just step up and try to support this. And some specs already operate this way, like for instance CDI is entirely in the charge of Red Hat, or Arjan Timms does a really great job in Java 8, a huge amount of work. So why not? I don't think Oracle has to invest too much in Java 8. It should be, a community effort. And to be honest, Java 7 is pretty stable already. It's not like we need, another revolution with a huge amount of resources. And yeah, so a little bit of drama. And these were basically Java 8 news. What news from my side? I'm implementing some features for nHiterator for the data transformation pipeline. Breaker gets some new updates. Lightfish got already some updates, and I'm thinking about the Afterburner as a kind of plugin mechanism, because I got so many contributions, and I would like to make the features pluggable. So this is what happens in my leisure. And now back to the topics. Let's see whether we have any questions. No questions. Of course not. I got some tweets. I get the first question was via email, and someone asked me, do you think NetBeans is still a good IDE for Java EE, Java HTML, and single page applications development in 2016? I'm thinking NetBeans becomes better and better, and this is one of the problems, my problems, why I always use the daily builds. For instance, there is a nice Docker support with Docker containers, and it comes with Nason support, so I use it all the time, and this is a fairly recent daily build. And the question of comparing to IntelliJ is even better. Even better is more powerful. In my eyes, NetBeans is a little bit more usable, so easier to use and somehow better integrated, better out of the box experience. So I can just download and use it. IntelliJ is a little bit more a friction, but the tool is even more powerful. And he also asks using Eclipse and SDS. So I don't like Eclipse a lot, and the only reasons why I don't like it is because the proliferation of plugins, and I don't like spend my time to setting up the IDEs. So these times are over. So another question I got according to Afterburner is how to access the other side. So we have a service, and the service is injected to the controller, and the question is how the service can notify the controller. And the answer is of course using events or data binding in JavaFX. This is why we need data binding. So the request has a reference to the service, and the service and the presenter could register itself and receive the events. So now the first official question from March 9th. And this is a nice one from Abirox, and the question is about EGBE versus CDI. And the future Java 8 and 9 seems to be the following. There are multiple components, is EGBE and CDI at the same time. And now he asks more detailed questions, what to do with it. So EGBE model predates CDI. And he asked about unification. So what I did, I created several issues in the issue tracker, and in my opinion, what should happen, we should either get the pullable annotation in CDI to make the CDI beans pullable, or we should make the EGBE the pull size and min pull size standardized. Right now is just proprietary XML feature. This should happen, and if we get CDI pullable CDI with a view stereotypes, we could actually replace EGBs entirely when they kill the entire JSR, which would be nice because then Java becomes even simpler. It's just one less API, always good. So the next one is, what is the benefit of extracting EGBE features, pulling concurrency scaling into separate specification? So, and this is this was a little bit my criticism, because I don't care where it is, whether it is CDI or EGBE. I always saw Java EE as an entire thing which is usable. Whether I'm getting the features from EGBE spec or CDI, I really don't care, and none of the application developers who has something to do from the business perspective really care. And actually at the airhacks in Munich, I don't even, I just hack the application and don't spend too much time explaining whether it is a EGBE or CDI spec. No one cares. I think what we should do, we should combine all the specs and for productivity and stopping, arguing what's better and whatever. But having that said, EGBs are the fastest, and it was the performance was measured several times. So it's interesting. And why is it so interesting? Because I know some project where they killed EGBs because they were afraid of performance, and turn out that performance of EGB is just outstanding good. So why not just continue stateless singleton stateful? This is exactly my opinion. So it works perfectly well. But if we get pullable, I would be ready now to kill EGBs. Why not? So Abirox just reads my mind. So what is wrong with having two models? Nothing in my eyes. However, the CDI guys care a lot to be to have the feature parity to EGBs, and I can understand it that they just would like to have one single component model. But having that said, in none of my projects there were any issues. So no one complained that EGBs behave differently to CDI or CDI to EGB, and there was actually no question at the airhacks TV for the 2 years, so there's not an issue in the practice, but lots of issues in the mailing list. So will EGB as spec be deprecated? Is that safe? I think in one point of time it's going to be deprecated. Is it bad? No, because I think what we could do then, we should consider it stateless as a stereotype, which comes with monitorable, pullable, and transactional. And in worst possible case, I would just replace all at stateless with my stereotype, writing a simple script. So this is not a huge risk. And I don't have a lot of EGBs. I usually use EGBs as a boundary, and everything else can be EGB, but does not have to. Okay, Vonix 2000. So before I move on, let's see whether there are some questions in the chat. No questions in the chat. Lazy chat. And Twitter, also no question in the Twitter. But I can answer a question from Twitter. Some clients are only running Tomcat. Can I create microservice using CDI and transaction and deploy war on Tomcat? Actually, you can use microservice using fully fledged WebLogic or WebSphere. It doesn't actually matter. If you cannot believe it, watch the screencast I showed you earlier. But what I did, one of my clients is only able to run Tomcat. What I did then, I installed into the Tomcat the Java E Plus, and I got the full stack Java E. So I wouldn't bother just to install CDI. I would just push the war to Tomcat. So go to the Tommy site. So let's see whether we will find it. So Tommy. So this is what you need. And Tommy comes with distribution as a war. So so you can deploy a war. So there is some downloads, standalone and a war download. And if you get the see drop-in wars, so you can transform a Tomcat to a fully functional Java server with almost no difference in runtime. Almost no difference in runtime. It actually would be a fun example to test it, right? Just running a Tomcat and dropping the Java E war and see what the difference is. Actually, it could be. It's an interesting idea for a screencast. Yeah, why not? So thank you, Misak, for the idea. And so any idea of how to test interceptor bindings? I think to test interceptor bindings, I mean, I wouldn't test the interceptor bindings rather than interceptors, because I hope interceptor bindings are already tested with the application server. But I would test interceptors using something like Delta Spike. It's a little bit easier than Archelion. It's just perfect for this. Okay. So we had this. So let's see the next one. Boundary control entity. So I use controls from boundaries of another business component. I thought that the classes inside control package are not exposed to other business components. They absolutely are. So in boundary control entity, you one boundary from one component can get injected controls from other components. It is not best practice, but it is absolutely necessary to do so. Why it is necessary? Because otherwise you will end up having lots of empty interfaces. Is boundary only for external usage? Yes, boundary should be the API, and calling from boundary to boundary is unusual. It's not prohibited, but almost prohibited, so I really try to avoid it. I only have JAX-RS access. Would I only place the REST endpoint here? In a boundary package, you would place the JAX-RS resource and the EGBE, which has nothing to do with path. So the boundary comprises at least a resource, JAX-RS resource, plus a facade or a service, which is an EGBE. So it is annotated with stateless, and it coordinates the others. So async response for CRUD. I have simple CRUD, and the question is, so all the request takes less than a second. Does it make sense to use suspended async response with dedicated managed executable service? So first, I would like to draw something. So first, the thing with the boundaries. So it's a recurring question. So why not to draw? So the question was, I have a component. It's a boundary control entity, nice component, and the other component is even nicer, boundary control entity. And the question is, here I have my EGB, no, sorry, a resource. So this is JAX-RS, and this is stateless. And the question is how they communicate. So we can have here as well JAX-RS. Stateless. This would be stateless, and here could be a JAX-RS resource, and with dependency injection, and here would be a POJO. So Poro, plain old resource object could be also possible. Yeah, okay, POJO. So this EGB can talk to this POJO, absolutely. This EGB could talk to this EGB, but it's unusual. This should never talk to this, so it should only talk to here. And this can here talk here, and the best component would be one stateless, with with a view POJOs and a view entities, and controls are optional. So this is a recap BCE, And the next one with async. So what's the deal with async? So the nice stuff is if we have several path 1 and 2, and there are, let's say, 2 components in charge of the path. So if you're using managed executor service, and let's say we have here old is legacy system 1 and legacy system 2. So docs here and this docs here. So if we use the managed executor service with async response, we got a bulkhead out of the box. So we can say 5 threads here and 5 threads here, and they are completely separated. So if this component just blocks, it will only affect this path or this component, not the whole application. So I actually did this live during the Java EE Microservices workshop. So if you're interested in it, just watch the workshop. So I just tested exactly this, how it behaves if this component gets stuck. So, and best practice for long Java EE tasks, long running Java EE tasks, several minutes and even several hours. So what you should do, in my eyes, you shouldn't return 201, you should return 202 accepted. And just giving an URI or pushing the status updates using WebSockets, for instance. Instead of polling, you can just push it. And the best would be if you had something like, let's say, schedule, which pushes the changes and it changes the state in a database, like a state machine. And I implemented something like this. If you go to GitHub, and here you can look at stateful. This is like a little state machine, which where you can load STXML and use HTTP to perform transformation state transitions. And this could be, of course, this could be persisted in the database. Doesn't have to, but could be. And what you could do, of course, you can transform the internal state from state to state to state, and on each state transition notify all listeners using WebSockets. This would be the best one. So the point is, you should not block. So it should not work like this, that you are blocking for several minutes. You should immediately return 202 accepted with an URI where the status can be checked. So another one, nice one. I get the question all the time, ES 2015 or ES6 versus TypeScript. Which framework to choose? Should I start with Angular 2 or Angular 1? I would say, so Angular 1.5 will have some Angular 2 compatibility, but it really depends when you go live. Angular 2 is already available, not and I think it's beta, so you can use it right now, and I think it's a lower risk to use Angular 2 than starting with Angular 1. This is what I would do, but it really depends when you are going live. If you have to go live tomorrow, then use Angular 1.5. So the next one is breaking up monolithic plain old Java architecture down to microservices. Plain old, actually, if you follow me, I actually always propagated something like having, monolithic war, which is small and talks to other wars. Back then, I would say probably 7 years ago or something, I propagated more remote method invocation because it comes out of the box and there were no web clients. And right now I would rather choose JAX-RS over RMI because RMI is no more supported as well by most applications, or supported as well. It's no more pushed forward by JDK. So it's not plain old, but the question is, the bigger thing, what I'm thinking about is the transaction management across microservice calls. So the answer is, forget about this. So even if you will get remote method invocation, you will have to handle XA exceptions. So XA exception happens if you have two-phase commit, which can happen via Corba. And what you will have to do, for instance, you should be able to handle heuristic mix, where one service is committed and the other one roll back. Also, one of my favorites is heuristic hazard, which means I did something but I forgot what. And so I would say it is not a best practices to try to, it was never a best practice to have independent services and trying to coordinate them using a ACID transaction. So what you should rather, the question is then, so what I should do then? So what you should do is, you should design these services in idempotent way. And in idempotent way, what it actually means, so on exception, you should be able to repeat the service call over and over again. And if it doesn't work, you need a compensative transaction. But a transaction is not an undo, rather than something business, like a business undo. So what is a business undo? Let's say, if the payment doesn't work, there is no unpay. So what you would rather do, you will ship the order back or something like this. And the point is, if you do this, you need a good connection to the business department, to the domain experts, because it is not possible to just as a developer to invent new use cases. So it is possible, but it's usually not supported by the business people. And actually, we spent, I think, several hours at the Java EE architectures workshop last week, just talking about exactly this issue. So it's not possible just to answer this, but the simple answer is everything has to be idempotent. So the only danger is post, of course. Idempotent means you can repeat the calls, and it's if it really doesn't work, you need a business rollback. So a good one. Is JMX still useful now? Will it be useful in the future? So JMX is still very useful if you have the infrastructure in place. So the infrastructure in place means you have tools which gather the data, and usually such tools use JMX. If I don't have such tools, what I usually do, I prefer JAX-RS or REST, because it is very easy to monitor such a system from a distance. And the nice story is, if you have, of course, REST, you are absolutely not dependent on Java. So you can do, you can just use curl and write simple scripts to monitor the system. And nice story in Java EE, you can have a singleton which exposes both at the same time, a JMX endpoint and JAX-RS is actually what I did in the X-Ray project, where I'm exposing both, so I'm able to connect with JVisual VM and via REST. And also there's ready-to-use libraries. I have to say, I'm less interested in libraries which provide some transparency, showing me technical stuff. What I think is more important to show what your application is doing from the business perspective, like, how many orders per second are processed, how many were successful and how many were not successful. So just exposing now the essential responsibilities of each component as a REST service. I think this is a paramount feature, and whether I see the heap or not, is less exciting to me. So this one is interesting. So this is an airhacks alumni, and he asked, there is one method called call from main, and this method returns a list, and the list is used by services B, C, D, and E, and they are independent from each other. And he would like just to invoke them in parallel, and how to do this. And so the first call, I would implement the call in synchronous way. So, or if it's fast enough, so you get the list back, and in the list you could use stream, and in stream you can use, for instance, map, and within the map method you can call the services, gather the results, and transform them in real time. And I showed how to do it also in the Java EE Microservices workshop. So I started with such things like using completable future to coordinate remote services, and it works surprisingly well. And so if the stream works, you can try to use a parallel stream and see what happens. And and even if they are in separate wars, doesn't matter, because you could use JAX-RS client, exactly what I did in the Java EE Microservices workshop. How to do this? Looked at completable future. It's called supply async, then run, and there are no run both and run easier. So you can build very easily a nice pipeline with nothing but completable future and JAX-RS client. Again, just look at the Java EE Microservices workshop, and the first callables, parallelization with callables, exactly what he asked for. Combining pipelines where you can combine the results from different services. This is actually what I did. And or go look at the sample application called Java Microservice on my GitHub. You will find the source code as well. Okay. We have this. I hope he's happy. So this is also interesting. Do you know how to implement an existing product or standard using JAX-RS for retrieving partial response? And what it actually means, this is you have a huge object and you would like to pass some parameters, and depending on the parameters, you get slices of the object back. And this is not supported directly by JAX-RS out of the box, so it's not a part of the standard. But Eclipse Moxie is able to do this. So there is, I think they call it filtering. So let's see, Eclipse Moxie filtering JSON. There were several. And you have to search for the Moxie client, and what there is a possibility to use annotations and annotate several parts of the object, and with the binding to the JAX-RS, let's JAX RS Moxie partial. Let's see whether we find something with partial. This is, I think it's this. Yes, this is exactly what I meant. So the idea is a root element attribute and XML element phone number, and then you can somewhere say that you need a slice, a subgraph, and the subgraph can be populated using JAX-RS. So look at this, and they combine in one. I will just post the link. The problem is, of course, it's not part of a standard. It's just Moxie. So we just push it to the chat. It's part of the prox and into other chat as well. So we have both. Okay. Sharp David asked me about should JPA contain business logic? Why not? Are you object anemic? It's time to get rich in 2007. So pretty old, almost 10 years old. And he looked at Lightfish is my monitoring tool and found no business logic in the escalation entity. And in Java EBC archetype found some amount of business logic in registration. So exactly. So thank you, Sharp, for reviewing my stuff. And he says, okay, I understand it's an old blog post. The question is it still up to date? Absolutely. So I would say just, prohibiting business logic in entities is completely wrong. Sometimes it is really nice to have polymorphic behavior, and there is actually a really funny page. It's called anti-if campaign, and what it means, instead of using if type of, use this, and else this, just use polymorphic behavior. I always show it during the trainings as well because it's fun. So I will just put it to the chat. Where is the chat? Here. And the my observation is particular in expert systems or systems where you are modeling graphs. Then it's really valuable to have real object. And real object means if you invoke a method of the entity, you get the entity could change internal state. Or you get polymorphic behavior back. For instance, transport planning is a classic one, where you have different routes and different transports and different vehicles, and you could have, working with an abstract vehicle route and transport, and depending what it is, it could be container, bicycle, or highway, and there are only particular vehicles allowed to go on particular routes. And then it becomes easier to work with. The problem with object-oriented behavior, of course, is you have to do the abstractions right from the beginning and not overdo. So it's not. I think it's a really bad idea to start, with abstract classes without having any idea about their responsibilities. Okay, so what it means, instead of artificially keeping the business logic outside the entities, just keep them in the entities, and it is actually a best practice if it belongs together, because entities are true objects. Do it is like is the sample app from the effective Java 7 workshop, online workshop, and there's an issue with Whitefly because the injection entity listener doesn't work, and I actually commented this already, and the issue is known by Whitefly, and therefore I used for this particular example I used Payara to show how it works during the effective workshop. So what I'm talking about, there's a airhacks.io, there are all my workshops, and this was the effective one, and there should be somewhere listener or audit, exactly. And in this is audit and changing with JPA listeners, this doesn't work on Whitefly because of a Whitefly bug. Okay, perfect. So Robert asked question, then watch the Java Microservices workshop and say, okay, is answered. But what he asked is whether Docker should build on every push, and the answer is absolutely, because it doesn't take around 100 milliseconds. It is extremely fast with Java. And he asked me, do you have the same war for your system tests that get deployed in production later? Absolutely. If you need a bearer token to access the services, how do you handle that? Security and system tests in general. I mean, what you can always have, you have several keycloaks, and keycloak can be also containerized, and you could switch using software-defined networks, different keycloak servers. And in worst case, what you can always do, you can ship the war as a jar as well. So what it actually means, I will just try to find my old blog post, war reuse. As you can see, I use my blog as a notepad. So if you do this, attach classes to Maven War plugin, what happens behind the scenes, you get the jar and war at the same time, and you can use the jar and wrap it with another testing var for test purposes, and omit, for instance, bearer token or whatever you like. So then you can do whatever you like in your test. Okay. And another one, I try to use correlation ID. So what correlation ID is, I think this is just a unique ID which is used, for instance, to sort the calls and something. I use it in container request filter and the container response filter demo project. The filters are very neat. What I don't like is the call from another service. So what he says, if the service calls, the header or the correlation ID has to be extracted and then sent back. Of course it has. What you can, of course, do if you need the correlation ID everywhere, what you could do, you can produce the correlation ID using request scopes, for instance. Then it will be injectable everywhere. So you can pass the context, or using transactional scope, but the request scope would work even better. But what you see here, what he did is he used the HTTP headers, extracted the header. By the way, you don't have to do this here. You can also inject the HTTP headers and globally, not on as a parameter. And then sends the correlation ID back. So is the better way to implement correlation ID in Java? I mean, there are lots of examples. You can use a servlet filter, a stupid one, and just, you know, save it in, for instance, thread local. So if you know what they are doing, it would work. Or using your own scope, like service scope. So there are lots of ideas, but for me, it does not look that bad. It's just he just extracts the correlation ID and sends it back. Okay, next one. Let's see what there are questions. So no questions here. No questions in Twitter. The chat is somehow strange today. No questions. Usually it's very eager. Okay. So, Victor asked me how you would manage an architectural aspect of a huge system. The question is whether I still with just wars, or are there any chances that I would introduce an ear. First, I don't get what a huge system means. Huge is always suspicious, because what I saw several times, we were able to delete 80% of boilerplate code from a huge system using Java EE, and what remained were just pure business logic, and the war was actually tiny comparing it to before. And then what you usually do, you would split the one war into a few wars with isolated responsibilities. So no isolated responsibilities, with dedicated responsibilities, but the wars would be completely isolated. And so what I wouldn't do, use the remote and local anymore, what I described, years ago. Why not? Because remote communication is dead, I would say. I would just use exclusively JAX-REST is what I would change. I wouldn't use add remote anymore. Why not? Because add remote is RMI over IOP, what usually means Corba. And Corba is not well supported by, or well supported, it's still supported by the servers, but it's not like, very popular technology, so the chances that you get bugs are very high. There are also serialization vulnerabilities, so you should avoid that. And the problem is, if you're using EGBE client, you are depending on half of the application server. There's huge dependency on the application server runtime. So a better way to go with RESTful services. So, and the next question is, do you think the new MVC action-based specifications is a bit late in Java 8? What I remember is, as iPhone came out, the first one, everyone said it's too late. Yeah, no, Nokia and everyone were, very popular technologies. Everyone said it's too late. Also, I think for 10 years, EGBE was said to be dead. And Java 8 should die because of Spring, because of Rails, and it's still alive. And is even more and more popular, at least in my projects. It's like crazy what happens right now. And since now most of the project go with RESTful services, I think there are two architectural choices. RESTful services is client-side frameworks, and MVC is server-side frameworks. And I have to say both have their place. So server-side frameworks, web frameworks, you get better page ranks at Google. The client-side frameworks can be offline, and server-side frameworks not. With MVC action-based specifications, there's nothing to replicate because the data is you have a direct reference to the server runtime, whereby in RESTful web services you have to think about the API first. So for me, MVC is a nice extension, and I would use it a lot for templating, admin UIs, just health checks, why not? And probably from time to time in a larger application. Actually, there are huge apps still using server-side technology. And the question is, where I can find videos from you regarding JEFX. My YouTube channel, the name of the channel is Bean Adam. So if you go to youtube.com, C for channel, and Bean Adam. And you should be able to find me. And these are the recent videos. So this is how you find me, and you will find all the screencasts here. And on Vimeo, it's also a channel, and I try to gather here also some third-party records from other conferences, for instance. Okay. And by the way, about popularity, what we were here at the YouTube. Where was it? Here. what's funny, interesting, the Java eTalk from JFocus here, let's see with it. It was crazy popular. So where was it? How to find the JFocus talks here. JFocus. Exactly, this is what I wanted to see. And if you sort the video by popularity, most popular, then it's the Javaistic way of coding, which is the Java session number 3, and this is 1 month ago, and the others are 5 years old. So Java are crazy popular, as you can see. So I cannot even believe it. So and this is just Javaistic way of coding. It's not as exciting title like, you know, Microservices will save the world, something like this. So we have this. Next one. Several sub-resources, and the question boils down, does the CDI dependency injection work for sub-resources? The answer is not. You have to pass it from outside, use bin manager lookup. I actually tried to, if you look at the issues, to achieve that in Java 7, but it was rejected because of some potential problems with the spec. So it is not possible to inject CDI beans in sub-resources. You will have to use service locator pattern for this. So other Java sources with other Java-rated blog screencasts can you recommend? It's really hard to say because I use, you know, Google for topics and then read whatever I can find. It's not like I'm following blogs or screencasts. I would say this Java magazine from Oracle is nice. This Java magazine, this is nice. Then there is a Voxed. It's also, I think it's Voxed. It's also a nice page about various development. This is a fresh one. Vox Java magazine, and they are Java magazine from Oracle. This is this one. This is really great publication. And we have the German Java magazine. It's also interesting. So there are lots of resources, but I don't think, you know, it's like a canonical resource where you should spend all the time and read it. Which software do you use for recording your screencast? It really depends what I'm recording and when. So right now I'm using Wirecast, and I will post-process this with Final Cut, and the title work are made with Motion. And screencast software, even forgot this. The same from, I think it's Telestream is the company. There are several video recording software. So I'm experimenting a lot and try to increase the quality or automate the whole process. So this was the meta question. Now, reliable checkpoints in Java 7 batch processing. And this question asks, okay, there is in the spec, there is no point where a database is prescribed. Can I confirm this? I don't have to. I think you already look at the spec. But it's the same story like in stateful EGBEs. It's also not prescribed that the state has to be stored in a database, not either in scheduled. The scheduled persistent timers is also not prescribed that the data has to be stored in the database. Actually, a whitefly stores the data in a flat file, even for JMS, HornetQ. And Glassfish uses database. So database is never prescribed. I think more important it is that it has to be consistent and transactional. This is the whole point. And I think there's nothing wrong to store the state in a file. You can even, I mean, at the end of the day, database stores also the state in a file. Similar questions, what I already asked. What is the benefit of freeing the initial processing thread by passing over to another asynchronous thread instead? So what is the benefit? The HTTP thread is not locked anymore and the server remains responsive. You have more control, you can better stress tests, and if one channel breaks, the application is still operational. And this is particularly interesting for microservices because it's not like microservice means we get, you know, 500 wars with a single resource in it. I would say a microservice is something which is delivered by a small team. So you will get several endpoints, and you can better manage each endpoint individually. Okay. Exactly. So the point is the scalability and robustness. Or how it's called, resilience. So security. Someone moves PHP spaghetti into Java EE, and this is funny. It's interesting because for several years there's a trend that there are more and more PHP developers who migrated their stuff to Java EE. I interviewed some on my blog, and it's interesting because PHP is considered as the lightweight stuff, and more projects are migrating to Java EE. So keycloak is a good idea. Could you recommend me any other parts where I have to shield the app? I would say if you're only exposing REST, then there's nothing else to secure. I mean, the only possible, you shouldn't use any remote interfaces, no RMI, no Corba, nothing. Then it's secure because the only way to access your app is the RESTful web services. So what he's saying is stateless, and at inject and says, okay, he used local or stateless. What you forgot is bins XML all injection point. So this is what you should look like. Check that, and probably I would suggest start with my archetype. So if you go to Maven project from archetype, and let's say airhacks. So you get two interesting projects. This BCE archetype, I will refer to it later. This is the scaffolding archetype, and Java 7 project archetype. And let's say hello. Let's call it hello. And what you will need is the following. Where is it? Web pages. This is what I meant. Bin discovery mode all. If you don't have it, then all classes have to be annotated, otherwise the dependency injection won't work. Okay. I want to share common fields and behavior at all entities, how to achieve something like following. So entity locker would be entity listener. So this would work. So just go to the do it project and look for entity listener. So you can just use entity listener there. But entity logger, okay. This is just a logger entity which is used to store log files. And what you can always do, you can use map superclass is like an entity with shared fields. So map superclass is the name of the annotation. And this is an entity without being mapped to a table, and it just contains fields. And this should also work what you did, but you should use here at entity annotation as well, then it will work. Or map superclass here. And then you can use different inheritance strategies. And the base one is storing the whole graph in one single table, which I prefer because of performance. You only need one query for polymorphic results. I have need for sample project, JSF, REST, and so forth. So please take a look at the BCE archetype. So if I go here, this is a more complicated project called airhacks BCE archetype. So it comes with REST, scaffold. This one. Also, if you go here, you can say we can start a project CRUD, and so what the scaffold contains is a application with shows you how to build and test a little bit more complicated application. It's not CRUD, but is a little bit more business logic here. And the CRUD, what you can do, you can go here and say new entity classes from database. And I can, for instance, check this one. And it just starts the database right now. And I could say, okay, I would like to have a address. Next. Finish, and it would create an address entity here from the database, And then I should be able to say here new, it was like other web JSF classes, Java server faces, JSF pages from entity classes, and it will create for you does not have a target server, so let's assign the target server. Run. Which one? Payara is okay. And now let's try new other. We did it a lot for master data management. So if I go here, Java server pages and JSF pages from entity classes, just pick this one. Next. CRUD looks good. Next. Finish. And you get your CRUD project. So it creates all the templates. The nice story is you can customize even the templates. They are customizable. This is, you can see here, you have here the index HTML and you have the address, create, edit, list, view. So 2 clicks and you have your CRUD scaffolding, or go to my BC archetype to see the architectural workings. And this is, it creates facade with entity and the controller. So the code is not as clean as I wish, but you can still customize it using the templates here. So the templates are absolutely customizable. If I say here again, JSF pages from entity classes, you will see here, wait a second, customize template. And if I go here, all templates, so you can customize the code and write really decent CRUD scaffolding app. So I would generate it until the code is really clean. This is the properties, but this looks a little bit nicer. This is the JSF user class, and this is a free market templates. So just go for it. So I hope you are happy now. You have to be. So this is great tooling. So I want to learn SAML with Java and implement in my personal project. SAML with Java. Please give me an idea how to do this. One, look at Keycloak. Keycloak from Whitefly. So just use this first. If it works, then you can proceed with this, and they also introduce SAML. So when I face a new project, can I think of it in a microservice architecture way from the beginning, or is just for refactoring a monolithic application? And this is a good one, because for me, microservices are actually nothing new. This is what we actually did in Java EE for years, at least I think I would say 2009, since the advent of Java 6. I think, well, wait a second. What I said, War is the New Year should be the title of the post. 2009. So December in 2009, I wrote this, and since then it is like it is. I'm just pushing, lightweight wars, and I always propagated, no external dependencies, small units, and small fast deployment cycles. And this worked always well. This is now 7 years old. So what it means, actually, you are absolutely right. So if you are reasonable, microservices will just occur with Java EE. This war would be tiny. Also read the blog post from Sebastian Daschner I showed you at the beginning. And refactoring a monolithic application is also interesting. I got several contracts this year and last year helping to improve maintainability of the application by introducing microservices. And what I often did, I just removed all the plumbing and boilerplate, like empty layers, outdated patterns, and then there was no more need for microservices, because what remained was a very small app which deployed very fast, and it was absolutely maintainable. Okay, the last one. Before we do this, I will just switch briefly to Twitter. And Anton Apple, what he did, this is actually interesting. He has a nice web framework called Oracle Jet Duke script, and what he wrote, I will have to check it out. A nice client for Lightfish, and I will take a look at this because this will be a really nice and lightweight solution for let's see what I will find it. For Lightfish, and this is Jetchi. I would just, so I didn't tested this, but it really looked promising. And the last NetBeans day in Munich, Tony showed me this, and this is also a nice alternative to JavaFX because then you don't have to install anything. You can just look at this, and this looked really nice. So I will push it to the chat. So Tony was on time. Okay. Question von Anovac. Do you have an example using Delta Spike instead of Archillion? Yes, I have. If you go to the Java testing workshop, online workshop, and there is also a, let's wait a second. So, airhacks.io, there is a testing workshop, Java testing. So, you don't even have to buy or rent it. So, you don't have to spend the €10. What you can do, you can, you should go to GitHub, Java testing, and somewhere there was Delta Spike, for instance, Archillion. So if you go to here, there should be a example with Delta Spike. So you don't even have to buy the course. Okay, nice. Then go back to the last question here, and then go back again to chat. Could be more interactive. So the question is, this is a new one, 14 hours ago. GMS, producer and consumer with an MDB. This message listener interface. Okay. He's not able to send GMS to GSF page. This is somehow strange because if you receive the message-driven bean, if the message-driven bean receives the message, what happens then? So the question is, Chili's ask me, we send a GMS message and how to pass the GMS message to GSF page. The problem is GSF is request response. GMS is asynchronous. So what you have to do is, like, you will have to receive the GMS message, extract the content, and then somehow pass it to the GSF page. If the content is global, like a global update of ticker or stock ticker or something like this, this would be fairly simple because then you can just store the data in a singleton, application scope or singleton, EGBE, and then in the next call, the GSF could pick up the content and display on the page. What you could also do, of course, experiment with WebSockets and push, if the data arrives, the content directly to the GSF page. Would also work. What also would work was long polling. And even if the very old, how it's called, Ice Faces GMS, as I recall, Ice Faces used GMS for synchronization purposes. So you can use GMS and send the messages back and forth. So take a look at this. So I know that they use it in the past. I'm not sure whether Prime Faces has something with GMS synchronization, but seems like they have. So it's just a little bit newer, and they're using Atmosphere framework, which is great news because Atmosphere uses also long polling. So I just push you the two resources, and then, so this is the Prime Faces, and iSpaces. Okay. Now, question from chat. Nice. Anonymous 44791 ask me, I have an application with the BCE pattern. Nice. Then Anonymous, please say what, just ping me. I would like to interview you on my blog about your experience with BCE. This would be nice. I will ask you a question like what you are building and, you know, are you happy with Java and so forth. But well, let's see. The main service is stateless. Perfect. Like the boundary. As are the separate controls that DAOs using CRUD service are stateless too. So we could argue about the DAO. Usually I don't use the DAOs, but if you have to, use it. Then I have adapted that send information to other systems, again stateless. I have the feeling my architecture is wrong. Can you comment on this? I don't think your application is wrong. You don't need so many stateless, but there's nothing wrong with it. It's just not needed. So the more stateless you have, the more monitoring data you become, but there's nothing wrong with it. There is no, you know, performance concerns or something like this. It would just work as well. What I will look closely whether the DAOs are needed and the adapters, because in my BC architecture is you only will need boundary, which is stateless. Controls would be would be a POJOs, and DAO, there will be no DAO. It will be just control which accesses the entity manager. And there will be no need for adapters. So this is what I don't see, and consider is wrong. You could delete some annotations, and then it would be easier to get. Okay, I think we are done, which is amazing. We had almost 30 questions. So there's nothing else to say except thank you for 2 years. Sticking with me, asking questions. I have great fun. It's still popular. As you see, I just published this today morning at 3 a.m. There are 1,000 views, so really interesting. Lots of interest in Java still. And if you like, come to Munich. The next workshops are in June. This is Bootstrap, Java 7 in architectures again. And in July, we have continuous Java testing and microservices. This would be fun. I think this time will be completely different. I plan just to code, so absolutely no slides, and probably I will cover more slides in the architecture, so we'll shift the contents a bit. But now we'll just plan just code the whole time with Docker and the stuff. And we have 2 events which are a little bit stranger. JavaScript, I will cover ECMAScript, ES6, and the old JavaScript, and it was just coding and show you lots of examples to better understand, for instance, what prototypical inheritance is. And also HTML5 for Java developers, which basically means HTML5 Bootstrap. Okay, so thank you for watching. See you next time, and see you at conferences, airhacks. Subscribe to airhacks news, and attend Munich workshops if you cannot, airhacks.io, or see you in projects all around the world. I'm back from Poland, a nice workshop at Blue Media. Also there, lots of interest in Java. So thank you for watching, and bye.